Hey, more happy clappy news. President Obama holds an 8-point lead over Mitt Romney in the state of Washington.
Hooray!
49-41. You know why? Because the state of Washington is awesome.
This is true.
We sold out one Seattle show, Sexy Liberal. The other one on its way to sell out, not till September 29th, ladies and gentlemen. Why is Washington so awesome? Because Representative Jim McDermott is from there, who joins us now. You see what I did there? Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Stephanie. How are you?
I am good. You're, as you know, my favorite. My favorite.
There you go.
Because you're so chuckly. Now, Representative, talk to me about, we've talked so many times about health care, but it is interesting, all the politicking going on ahead of this already. Whenever this decision comes down, we don't know. I love your colleague, Eric Cantor, has already said, if the Supreme Court leaves any of health care intact, we're going to take a bill to the floor that calls for the total repeal of Obamacare. I mean, just forever helpful, aren't they?
Well, Mr. Cantor still hasn't figured out that the American people want something done about the cost of their health care, and they want access to health care so that they're never in danger of being bankrupted. And I think that the Republicans continue to swim the wrong way. Yet they say in the rivers in Washington that a salmon that swims with the tide is dead, and they are dead. They're not swimming upstream trying to fix this thing. They are just saying, well, let's get rid of it, and hopefully the court will do it for them.
That is such an awesome Pike Place analogy. Yeah.
Only a dead salmon swims downstream.
Thank you. Right. Now, Eric Cantor said,
I like to think of myself as a salmon that's swimming in alternate directions for America.
So he asked why, he's going to immediately do this if the law is upheld. He said, so we can start over and tell the American people we're on your side. We care about your health care. We want quality care and affordable prices for men. I mean, this is exactly what the president Affordable Care does. I mean, it kills me, Representative. I was listening to some, they had this right-winger conference recently, I forget, and they literally said something like, well, we realize the status quo isn't working. We want the Supreme Court to strike it down, but then we want, affordable health care where there's, people have whatever he said sounded exactly like a mandate. It's like, yes, that's exactly what we just passed. I mean, it's so frustrating.
The reason we need the mandate, to be very serious here, is that if you don't have a mandate and don't have everybody in, then some people are free riders. They're riding along, and when they get sick, they're taken care of, and the rest of us pay for it in the most expensive way possible. That is in the emergency room when there's a catastrophe. So it makes much better sense to have everybody in and have preventive care and prevent things than to wait and deal with the huge expense. Blood pressure, for instance, if you deal with that, you can prevent strokes. Well, what we do now is we take care of the strokes in the emergency room. That's the most expensive way to do it, and that's why the mandate is important from not only a financial standpoint, but also in a healthcare standpoint.
Mm-hmm. We had your colleague, Representative Andrews, on yesterday. I thought, the way he explained it is exactly why you realize this started as a conservative idea. It was Mitt Romney's idea in Massachusetts. It came from the Heritage Foundation. It was in Bob Dole's plan. He said, say the guy next door is a successful young, internet entrepreneur, decides, he's healthy, doesn't need insurance, buys a motorcycle instead, gets in an accident. Who should pay for that? He goes to the emergency room, where it just doesn't make any sense to me how this does seem to me like it should be a conservative idea, personal responsibility, doesn't it?
It really is not about the idea. It's about whether President Obama gets credit.
Yeah.
They didn't want him to have credit. And if he had said the sun came up in the east, they would have opposed it because they didn't want him to get any credit for noticing the sun came up in the east. They simply were not going to give on anything in this bill. In fact, people like their kids being covered to age 26. They like the fact that there's guaranteed issue. They like there's community rating. They like all the things that are going in now. And if this bill's repealed today, tomorrow, next week, all those things will go away. And so the Republicans are now worried, and the insurance companies are worried about what do they do next if the Supreme Court actually does take it away. I think, I make my prediction, 6-3, it'll be upheld.
Do you really? Yeah,
Yep.
And that I believe echoes Nancy Pelosi has said the same thing, hasn't she?
I don't know. I went over and watched the oral arguments on the individual mandate, and I watched two guys. I watched Kennedy and I watched John Roberts, and they were asking hard questions and trying to figure out how they were going to work their way around this issue, because they know it's central to a conservative plan for covering everybody in this country. Mitt Romney put it in Massachusetts. Now he walks away from it and acts like the devil made him do it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what his explanation is.
Yeah.
But it's clear that there is a lot of concern on the court what will happen if they wipe it out.
Well, and it's been the same on every issue. That, as you say, the president's for it, they're against it. I wanted to get your take on the president's move on immigration, because I think it showed real leadership. It's the right thing to do. And once again, do they think we don't get history that it was all Republicans, blocking immigration reform?
Well, on that issue, I had a funny experience this morning with one of my colleagues who is he's Puerto Rican, and he went to a group of these activists, or young activists, who are in this group that was affected by the president, and he spoke to them in Spanish, and the coordinator came up and said, "Hey, speak in English, because they don't understand Spanish. That's the problem. We're sending them back to a place they don't know anything about." So what the president did made absolute sense. Mm-hmm. And the Republicans, the headline in the paper here is, GOP has no message on the DREAM Act.
Yeah.
They are stuck.
Yeah.
And he nailed them to the wall. It was a beautiful stroke.
Oh, it was, particularly because Mitt Romney absolutely ran hardest to the right on immigration during the primary, and you can't get away from that. When you're on tape, how many times saying, I absolutely would veto the DREAM Act, I want to make their life so bad they'll self-deport. I mean, you can't, it's hard to run away from that rhetoric now, isn't it?
Yep, I don't think he can, and I think the die is cast with anybody who is here in this country as an immigrant, whoever came here as an immigrant. They recognize that the Republicans do not like them, do not care, and would send them all back, probably all the way back to the Mayflower if they could. And there'd be a lot of us who'd go in that sweep. But they clearly are not responding to what's going on in this country, and the people know it. Well, that's why you get that number you quoted of the president being 8 points up on Romney. That's because the people see through them.
Yep. Yep, and that was just in your state, in Washington, and the Bloomberg today, he's up 13. So, we'll see. I think I've always said I think the media is more interested in trying to make this seem like a horse race. I mean, it literally, I feel like they just don't report good news for the president as much as they try to. Just yesterday, I think there were all these stories about, the Obama campaign's in disarray.
That all came from Fox News.
Yeah.
Well, it is important that the president do very well, because he's going to bring back in a Congress, and he's going to bring in some Democratic governors like Jay Inslee in the state of Washington, because as he sweeps and people say, no, these Republicans are crazy. We don't want more of that. We had that. And so I think they're going to support the president, and that will sweep in the Congress that then can do the things behind him that are necessary.
Yep, I've said it over and over. Representative Jim McDermott, our personal favorite from the great state of Washington. Thanks so much, Congressman.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
yeah, we'll be back.
All right.
The president would say the sun rises in the east. You know what else comes from the east? Communism.
Yes.
Yeah.